I want you to go back with me to 6 days before the Passover, 33 AD. You're standing in the streets of Jerusalem. It's dusty, it's semi-hot. It's just the beginning of spring, and the streets are packed. They're tight. There's probably about 1 million people in this tiny little city because it's time for Passover, and people have been flocking from all over the nation to come. You're standing in the marketplace, and things are busy as people are haggling and selling and getting their Passover needs and looking for the lambs without blemish so they could slaughter them on twilight at the eve of Passover. And all of a sudden, you hear a shout from down the road, "Make way for Rome!" You see people with horror in their eyes as a retinue of legionaries starts marching down the street with their Roman banners and their sounds of trumpets, their shining armor. You get shoved off to the side and you get pushed out of the way. You hear people behind you mocking the Romans. These are the ones who've come and they've oppressed us. They've taken our money. We're heavily taxed. We barely have enough money to live by. Many of us, many people in my family, many friends that I know have been crucified and nailed on the city walls and left out there to die for days just so they could show us that they're in charge and how much that means. And then all of a sudden you see a white horse come at the very end of it. That's Pilate. He's horrible. He's vicious. He's mean. He rules with an iron fist. Even his soldiers are scared of him. You can see that. This procession of Pilate goes down the street and off to the Praetorium. Another day of Rome, another day of terror, another day of pain, another crucifixion. As you're walking there in the streets, trying to find the herbs that you need for Passover and the food just to make it through the next couple days, maybe a couple things of bread, all of a sudden you hear another shout from down the alley. "Make way for the high priest!" And you see all of these scribes and Pharisees starting to walk. And you hear them chanting psalms. And then you see at the very end of this procession a high priest. And the high priest has a lamb. Oh, that's right. This is the day that the high priest and the scribes would have went down to Bethlehem. And they would have chosen one lamb without blemish who would have been the lamb for the whole community. Oh, we all have to get our own. But the high priest gets one himself. And he sacrifices that one lamb for the whole community. And that lamb will be brought up to the temple, and it'll actually be tied right next to the altar by a rope so they could examine that lamb for 6 days to make sure that it's without blemish. And then the eve of Passover at 3 o'clock on Friday, they will slaughter it on this altar, and that'll be the one Paschal lamb for the whole community. There's some good ones in that mix. That guy there, Joseph of Arimathea, he's pretty righteous. He's a good guy. I've seen him care for the poor. That guy Nicodemus, I've seen him care for the poor too. Not that one. That one takes all kinds of money. I see him dipping out of the treasury. I'm pretty sure that one's just for power. And don't get me started on the high priest, Caiaphas. His coffers are lined. He's just in it for power. They pass. All of a sudden, in the midst of this, all these thoughts that are in your head, your shoulder pops as people begin to run out the alley. And you see them with a flurry of excitement. Yeshua! Yeshua is finally coming. Yeshua is finally coming to Jerusalem. And you remember hearing this name, Yeshua. You've been hearing it buzz throughout the streets for the last couple weeks, and especially yesterday, because yesterday the word got back to the city that this Yeshua was in Bethany, and there was a guy who was supposedly dead named Lazarus, and supposedly Yeshua, this holy man of God, raised him from the dead. Could that even be possibly true? How is it even possibly true? In the midst of Rome oppressing us, in the midst of our corrupt religious world, could this possibly be the Messiah? And you see more people rush to the city gate, and so you go out there with them. And you see this procession begin to form in front of your eyes. as people start picking up palm branches and waving them and shouting, Hosanna, Hosanna to the Son of David. Why are they doing that? Because we do this procession. We grab palm branches, but that's on the Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of Sukkot that happens in the fall. That's the day that we remember the Messiah, that he would be with us forever. And the priest would take the palm branches and they would circle around the altar and they would bang the palm branches on the altar, hoping the leaves would fall out. And if the leaves would fall out, that would symbolize that our sins are forgiven. Why are they doing that with this guy? Why are they hailing him as the Messiah? And he's riding a donkey. Scripture told us that the Messiah would come on into Jerusalem on a donkey. And more people begin to flood. And then you watch as the procession gets nearer, as even little kids have palm branches and olive branches in their hands, crying out, Hosanna to the Son of David. And then you see him, and he looks at you with a look you have never seen before, with a love that feels like it pierces you. He's different. He's different. He didn't look at me the way Pilate looked at me. He didn't look at me the way the high priest looked at me. He looks at me different. You can almost see sorrow in his eyes. In the midst of all this joy, they're hailing you as the Messiah. It's like something's going to happen to him. You could feel it. Who are you on Palm Sunday? What are you feeling on Palm Sunday? What do you think of Jesus on Palm Sunday? We could just be like Pilate and his group, going about our day, maybe even power hungry. Maybe we're like the priests, just going about the motions. Here's a palm. I'll just shove it in my bulletin. Just lay it at home when I get home and go about my week as normal. Or maybe you'll be like the people who grabbed these and hailed him as the Messiah this week and as the King. And maybe that look of love would change you this week. Maybe it'll transform you, because it's going to lead right there, where he will love us even to laying down his own life. And the good news is that really isn't where it ends. It ends at the empty tomb. This week is not like any other week. It's not like any other week. You get to choose who you are in the story this week. We've been preparing for the 5 Sundays of Lent to live with all of our hearts. May that look of Jesus to you today, as you hold palm branches in your hand, change you, transform you, and to live anew with all your heart, so that you may follow him to the Last Supper, to the cross, and to the resurrection.